What up, world? This is Dominic, Syracuse with Cognitive Behavioral Theater, and in today's video, I am going to talk about what Austin Butler's performance in Elvis can teach you about your brain. Now look, first of all, if you haven't seen the new Elvis movie, go see it. I mean now. I mean right now. I mean stop this video, get up, and go to the movies and watch this. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Watch this entire video, like and subscribe, and then go to the movies and watch Elvis. You're not going to regret it. This movie is so good. It's brilliantly shot, amazingly put together, but the real knockout of this whole thing is Austin Butler's performance as Elvis. There have been so many actors who have played Elvis in the past, and none of them have nailed it like Austin Butler has nailed Elvis. I mean, listen, you got to understand, I'm an actor, okay? And I'm super judgmental when it comes to other actors. In fact, there's an old joke about actors. How many actors does it take to change a light bulb? 100. 1 to actually do it, and 99 to say, I could totally do that better. But that is not the case with the new Elvis movie. Austin Butler is absolutely transformative. Not since Jamie Foxx played Ray Charles have I seen an actor so transform into a real-life music icon. And to step into the shoes of Elvis Presley, who is arguably the biggest musical icon of all time, those are no easy shoes to fill. No easy blue suede shoes to fill.
Stop it. Get some help.
But seriously, it's a massive undertaking, and Austin Butler did such a good job. Lisa Marie Presley, Elvis's daughter, said this about his performance.
I said, is that Elvis or is that Austin? And he goes, no, that's Elvis. And then I go, are you sure? And then about a minute later, he goes, that's Austin.
So naturally, I became obsessed, and I said I want to watch every Austin Butler interview I can to figure out what he did to prepare for this role. And here's what's interesting. By taking an in-depth look at what Austin Butler did to prepare for Elvis, it can actually teach us something about how our brains work and how we can use this to transform our behavior and our lives. So, let's dive into this. Now, the first thing that Butler talks about is how he really wanted to do this. It was a dream. Now, for us, most of the ideas we have or hopes we have start out as a dream. Starts out with us saying, I'd really love to do that. That would be so cool. Oh my gosh. We paint the picture in our head of something we would really like to do or like to accomplish. But then it is normally immediately met by fear. This was no different from Austin Butler. This is what he had to say about it.
When you were auditioning, when you knew that there's an audition for Elvis and you're like, I'm close to it, did you get nervous? Did you always know Elvis?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
So you go like, okay, now I got the gig. Now it's really hard. I really got to get to work.
Yeah,
like,
you feel like you're about to climb Mount Everest.
Yeah.
When we get an idea in our head, it is very natural and normal for the first response to be fear. Human beings have something like 80,000 thoughts a day, and more than 75% of them are negative. Something like that. Look up the exact numbers. But the majority of our thoughts are negative because our brain likes to keep us from getting hurt. And anything new or outside of our comfort zone is very scary to us because we're like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it. So we have two options. One, we can just not. Yeah, that's what most people do, right? They have an idea, then they think about all the stuff that's scary and could go wrong or how intimidating it is, and they go, no. I'd rather just sit in my basement and wish my life was better and cry. It's just me? That's just me? But the other option is to say, okay, I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it with lots and lots of work, which is exactly what Austin did. Listen to him when he talks about his work ethic in preparing for this.
Okay, first of all, wow. Secondly, watching you physically transform yourself into Elvis Presley was astonishing to us. How did you get there?
Thankfully, I had a year and a half before we started shooting, so I tried everything. Trying everything, watching everything, reading every book on his life. But then that 6 months was really where it all marinated.
Butler devoured every Elvis song, movie, documentary, and YouTube video he could find to prepare.
Reading everything I could and talking to as many people as I could and really getting down to who he was as a man.
Film and just being blown away by how immersed you are in this icon.
Yeah, I built so much momentum in the preparation process.
There's an old saying from a famous playwright which says that talent may or may not exist, but all that matters is how hard you work. Another analogy is it's impossible to do, 1,000 push-ups a day and not end up becoming stronger and more muscular. It's just a consequence of the hard work. So whenever we're intimidated by something and we decide we're gonna work really, really hard at it, we're gonna get better at it just as a consequence. But that's actually not the part I wanted to talk about. What I want to talk about is the long-lasting repercussions of the type of work that Austin Butler did and how it's actually transformed him. What I mean is Austin did something you might have heard a lot of actors doing, which is called method acting. Now, method acting has gotten a lot of bad rap in the past. A lot of people think about it as like living as your character, or, if your character's starving, then you have to starve yourself, and yada, 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 yada. But actually, all that method acting means is, what is your method? What method do you use to get you into character? And for Austin, it was tons and tons of research. Listen to him talk about all the research he did and how specific he was with things even as small as words.
Wait
that
till you
Elvis
see this
said.
performance. I'm telling you, buddy, it was a knockout. I mean, just even the accents that Elvis had, the way he talked in the 50s, the way he talked in the 60s and the 70s, like 3 different Elvises.
All right, so like an example is when he was 19 and he goes on the Louisiana hayride. And so his voice at that point was like, well, I'd like to say how happy we are to be down here. It's a real honor for us to get a chance to appear on Louisiana hayride.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah.
And like a couple years later, he's 21. It's 1956. He's more like, everything's happened to me so fast in the last year and a half till I'm all mixed up, I can't keep up with everything that's happening.
Yeah.
Like, we can fast forward to 72. Like, there's this great interview in 72, and one of the first things he says is, because at this point his voice goes more forward into his face, And so then he's like, he just came out here from Memphis, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's just coming out of the front.
It comes out of the front of you.
So ultimately, Austin put everything on hold for 2 years and just immersed himself in everything Elvis. That means he watched clips and interviews and movies and listened to music, and day and night he just ate and slept and breathed anything he could involving the king. And it shows in this movie. I was watching the movie and I was so blown away about how specific his movements were, about the looks he was making, about his voice, how close his voice was to Elvis. And the funny thing is, he's actually gotten a lot of criticism online because people think he's still doing an impression. But the truth is, he worked so hard on the character that it's now become a part of his voice. Listen to him talk about this.
I feel like you're still Elvis right now.
Yeah. Is it hard to shake him?
Oh, I think there's habitual things. When you do one thing for 2 years, you create habits. So I know that I've got habits that are in there, but it's not intentional.
The other thing.
And real quick, speaking about his voice, I watched the movie and I was blown away, but I was positive that he was lip syncing the music, because how can you sing like Elvis? That voice is way too iconic to impersonate. I was like, okay, he did an amazing job with his speaking voice, and then they did a great job editing for sound, because, you know, I couldn't tell that wasn't him singing. Turns out it was him singing. Absolutely incredible, absolutely amazing. So the question is, what can that teach us about our brain? Well, I'm going to work a little bit backwards. Okay, Austin Butler immersed himself so much in Elvis, listening to him, watching him, etc., that it ended up permanently changing him. It ended up permanently becoming a part of who he is, of how he walks, the inflection in his voice. What's amazing is this is actually how human beings learn. We learn by watching. We learn by immersion. The way that you learned how to walk was by watching others walk. The way you learned how to talk was by observing others talk. And then you try it yourself. So it's very important whenever you're trying to learn something new to actually immerse yourself around others, specifically others that are better than you at that thing. Okay, so if you want to play an instrument, it's good to be around musicians who are better than you, and you can watch them, and that will make your progression go so much further than if you're just sitting alone trying things yourself. When I taught in the prisons, I would use this example of immersion to actually talk about lifestyle change. For instance, when I taught classes on addiction inside the jails, we had a saying, and that was, if you hang out with 9 meth heads, you're probably going to become the 10th one, because you're absorbed in that world and you're constantly watching them, and they start saying things like, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do it. We can show you how to do it too. But the reverse is true if you hang out with 9 millionaires. If you hang out with 9 millionaires, you're likely to become the 10th one, because you can observe how they live, what they do. What do they do that's different than what everybody else does? And they will say, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do it. You can too. And if you emulate that, you'll start to get the same results. So the first thing to keep in mind is, who are you watching? Who are you learning from? If you want something different out of life, if you want to change a behavior in one way or another, the first thing you can do is start changing your atmosphere, change what's around you, change what you watch and what you look at. And the more you dive into it, the easier it will become, because we as human beings are adaptable creatures. We adapt to any environment you put us in. The next thing I want to focus on is what I call mental environment or mental atmosphere. Listen to Austin talk about how deep he went into the role of Elvis for 2 years.
Priscilla Presley obviously gave this a big kiss for many, many, many reasons.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing that really would wake me up every day.
Yeah.
You know, I was waking up around 3 in the morning, even if I went to bed at 1, you know, just because I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up, my heart was pounding. I mean, it was also the most challenging thing I've ever done. But what a privilege to get to live with Elvis and learn everything about him for 2 years. And I mean, it was just the best time of my life.
Yeah.
Now, if you go and watch the movie, you will see. It's absolutely mind-blowing and transformative, but it's because our thoughts dictate our behaviors. That's actually the first rule of cognitive behavioral therapy. It's that your thoughts dictate your feelings, and then your feelings dictate your actions. So here's the question. What are you filling your mind with? Austin Butler filled his mind with Elvis 24/7, and he started acting and behaving like Elvis. It changed his point of view. It changed how he felt. It changed how he behaved. It transformed him. The first step to transforming our world, if transformation is what you seek, is what are we putting into our minds? What are we putting into our thoughts? It literally dictates the way we see the world. What I mean is, if you wake up every morning and the first thing you do is turn on the news and see all the terrible stuff happening in the world, you might think to yourself, oh my gosh, the world is a terrible place. But new experiences bring new synapses. It can break the old synapses, reform new ones, and actually change the biological structure of our brain. Whoa! Mind blown, literally. So when you start looking around at all of the positivity that really is around us all of the time, or filling your brain instead of with things that scare the shit out of you, things that inspire you, things that motivate you, things that you love to do. If you start filling your brain with these things, it's gonna start changing the way you feel and thus changing the way you behave. Think about Austin in the movie Elvis. He didn't speak like that before the film. It has permanently changed him. It has permanently altered his behavior. So my question for you is, what are you filling your mind with on a day-to-day basis? And then the question is, how much of what you're filling your mind with is things that you love, is things that uplift you, is things that motivate you? I challenge you, just take 5 minutes and watch something that inspires you. Watch something that you love. Watch something that makes you laugh. Do your best to actually look for the joy in the world. Or more specifically, the joy in you, in your mind, in your heart. See if it transforms you the same way that it transformed Austin Butler in Elvis. I don't know. I was trying to tie it all together there, but it's all food for thought, and it's something that I hope you can take with you. So remember, this machine dictates the way you feel and behave, but this machine kills fascists.